All right, hello everyone. Meteorologist Carly Smith is here. This is your weather impact alert for locally.
All right, hello everyone. Meteorologist
Locally is the Texas coast, specifically Corpus Christi and the coastal bend. Beaches are going to be impacted by Hurricane Milton. So locally, what we are anticipating is a rip current hazard and minor coastal flooding, very similar to what we saw with Helene. Our periods are going to be about 8 to 11 seconds anytime between now and Friday. So we do have the weather impact alert for that. But here is the latest now on Hurricane Milton and this live forecast update. Hey there, Coastal Bend. It is meteorologist Carly Smith, and anyone who's joining this live update, whether it's across YouTube, additionally Facebook, and our live streaming platforms, which you see right here. Download our app to get the latest information. But this is going to be an update that's very focused on Hurricane Milton. It is now a Category 5 hurricane. This storm rapidly intensified. When I got into work this morning, or the first update since I arrived to work this morning at 4 a.m., Hurricane Milton had wind speeds at 100 miles per hour. Now, over the last 7 hours, so with the 11 a.m. update at 10:55 a.m., Hurricane Milton was a Category 5 hurricane, so it went from Cat 2 to Cat 5 in just 7 hours. 7 hours. That is insanely fast to intensify so rapidly, and we are anticipating these Category 5 wind speeds 160 mile per hour winds. Now with the latest with the forecast this morning, it was anticipated near Cat 5, so a very strong Cat 4 as this storm skirted across the northern side of the Yucatan Peninsula. But now Cat 5 is pretty much a guarantee. Wind gusts could be up to 190 miles per hour. No, most of that activity will be offshore, but right there along the beach, hurricane force wind speeds are going to be likely. For the Yucatan, the northern Yucatan Peninsula, there is a hurricane warning. That pink box is in place from the National Hurricane Center. So this storm currently has a pressure at 925 millibars. I looked up how many storms had a pressure. It was several. I don't remember the exact number, but this is not crazy for a Category 5 storm to have a pressure of 925 millibars, but that is very low. It is moving east-northeast at 9 miles per hour now, or east-southeast at 9 miles per hour. So it's still moving a little bit south, but it is expected to take a turn to the northeast toward Florida still. Location is currently 125 miles west-northwest of Progreso, Mexico, but of course it is going to be moving east across the Yucatan Peninsula area. So that will be throughout this evening. By Tuesday morning, it is still over the northern Yucatan, and then it starts to pick up a little bit of speed as it heads toward Florida. Latest forecast, Cat 4, Cat 3, so pretty strong in Category 3 hurricane anticipated at landfall for Florida. Now this storm is expected to weaken because of something known as wind shear, and I don't think I have that in my lineup, but don't you worry, I can add it pretty easily. So shear is going to be winds turning or increasing with height. And we get that really taking place with this trough that kind of deepens right here. The front will weaken, so we're gonna see barely any impact from this front. I thought I moved this high. It'll be over Mexico, which is keeping us from feeling the effects of any type of cold front really here locally, except for some lower humidity. But what's going to happen is as Milton is approaching the Florida Peninsula for landfall there on the west coast, what you see is it starts to interact with a little bit more wind shear. So right now it is kind of just hanging out right on the edge of that wind shear, and it is anticipated to interact a little bit more with some wind shear. As this trough deepens, there is a chance more dry air mixes in with Milton, but regardless of any decrease in strength, it is still going to be a very strong, very devastating hurricane at landfall for the Florida Peninsula. And so we'll go back to the forecast cone now, just so you can get the latest updates. But yeah, Florida is definitely going to need prayers. Rob Leanna Ramirez, Doesn't look like Texas has any rain in the extended forecast. The satellite imagery looking a little wonky there in the last image, but Category 5, again, you can see the well-defined eye wall really, oh my goodness. Hold on, where do I get it to pause? So of course the pause is when it's pink. So let's just zoom in and watch for a second. So what you see, once it becomes a circle right here, ooh, that's when you know it's a powerful storm. And obviously wind speeds of 60 miles per hour, gusts 190, just continue to emphasize that. So Category 5 as it skirts right near the northern edge of the Yucatan once again, and then anywhere across the Florida coast. So the range of error 3 days out is about 100 miles for the National Hurricane Center forecast. So this storm, again, you see Cat 4, but it is expected to weaken to Cat 3 as it approaches land. At this time, now this forecast can of course change. The range of error is 100 miles either direction, north or south along that peninsula. So right now, Tampa kind of at the center of this cone, but that still could change over the next 48 to 72 hours. So Cat 5 is pretty rare. Milton is now going to be the 40th Category 5 hurricane on record. This is since 1924. That's when the first one on record was added. The record-keeping data does go back to 1850, but of course we don't have satellites and other forms of technology that really help us know the strength of these hurricanes. But Cat 5 hurricane since 1924, 39. This will now be the 40th hurricane since 1924. So you can see this plot shows where all of those storms have been. Now a lot of these reach Category 5 over open water, and then they weaken as they approach land. But regardless, still, this is still pretty rare considering how many hurricanes tend to happen in a year. Now we have had 3. This will be the 3rd year with a Category 5 hurricane in a row. So the 3rd year in a row where a hurricane reaches Category 5. One of them was Ian, which did weaken right as it made landfall. So the darker pink is Cat 4, but Cat 5 is this light pink color. Ian hit the Florida Peninsula 2 years ago, and the path very similar, not exact, but very close. That landfall forecast is going to be very close to where Milton is going to be. So that was just 2 years ago. A lot of this area has worked on recovery, but still many people still recovering from Ian, which was just 2 years ago. And then of course we had Helene, which made landfall a little bit further north in the Big Bend area, but Tampa saw about 8 feet of storm surge, which was some record storm surge for the area. And right now the forecast for Tampa is minimal 8 feet up to 12 feet. Now, of course, if this line continues to drift a little bit more south, Tampa will not have as much storm surge. However, right now, it's too close to be making that call. Regardless, this is going to be a bad storm for Florida, and thankfully, it is not headed this direction. Something else to keep in mind, those hurricane strength winds, 74 miles per hour or greater, likely to be felt across the Yucatan. Tropical storm force winds definitely felt across the Yucatan, and then it makes its turn toward Florida. This cone does get wider. As it gets weaker, it should strengthen, or not strengthen, but increase in size, so that will make that wind field much more broad or much larger. However, also the uncertainty associated with the forecast out over 48 hours additionally helps with the size increase. But regardless, major hurricane force winds are going to be likely. Right now they're only showing tropical storm force winds, but right at the center especially, hurricane force winds 74 miles per hour or greater. Category 3 is expected at landfall with 125 mile per hour winds. So locally, let's get into those local impacts, which is very minimal compared to what Florida will be feeling, right? So it feels weird to be alerting us to these, but if you do have plans to head to the beach, you've got to be alert now through Friday. So most of it, well, actually it is a break. So if anyone's headed to the beach on this fall break for I believe, I don't know if everyone has a fall break, but I know some people are in a fall break. So if you want to post in the comments whether you have a fall break or not right now, that would be helpful. But our local beaches will be impacted now through Friday. The rip current risk is going to be greater. So children swimming in the Gulf of Mexico, you think they're in the shallow, but that rip current is actually on the top. It's not necessarily something, it's not something that pulls you under and sucks you out, but in the water, there's going to be a channel where the water is going back out to sea. That is the rip current. We are going to be at a high risk for very strong rip currents because our water is going to be going further up the coast due to some coastal flooding. And additionally, we are going to have northerly winds, which pushes the water a little bit further up the coast. And then our waves are higher and our periods are going to be longer. So the combination of all of those things leads to the higher rip current risk, leads to coastal flooding. And then, of course, you've got to use caution if you do have plans to be at the beach. Use caution swimming, but also driving on the beach, parking at the beach may be impacted. We'll talk about those tide times coming up here in just a second. Milton is expected to weaken before it hits Florida, but not much. Category 3 is still a major hurricane with major impacts. Right now, it is not anticipated to be Cat 5 at landfall for Florida, but a major hurricane is expected, with 8 to 12 foot of storm surge, 74 plus mile per hour wind speeds. Regardless of that number at landfall, it is not going to be good for Florida. So locally, we're back local, 7 foot swells. I may be underdoing my wave forecast for today. 7 foot swells out at our buoy. I have 3 to 5 foot locally right on the coastline. They don't get quite as high at the beach unless you're able to swim or paddle farther out on a surfboard, but just the way our sandbar breaks are, it doesn't always translate to that head high or plus, but definitely I do think we could wind up with some head high or higher waves out there, especially now that Milton is a Category 5 hurricane out there. 12 foot swells showing up on the backside of that storm. Swells are only going to increase as it continues to churn up the waters there. We are going to see the ripple effect. Again, 7 foot swells are being picked up at our local buoy. That's about 70 nautical miles offshore. So with our wave forecast, we still will see some 4, possibly 5 foot waves as we head into Tuesday. Then our wave heights do start to decrease as Milton gets a little bit further into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. You can see, though, waves really dangerous there on the Florida coast. That's what's going to lead to that storm surge, as well as the strong winds pushing that water on the coastline. We see some of our higher periods as this ripple effect from Florida continues Thursday and into Friday. Then our wave heights do look to lower a bit into the weekend, but we may still have some 2 foot waves out there with slightly longer periods, which would be fun. For beginners especially. So what you see here, Monday, dangerous conditions, 3 to 5 foot, definitely could have some 6, 7 foot waves out there. 3 to 4 foot likely Tuesday through Thursday, and we are going to see the current risk continuing through at least Friday morning with that 8-second to 11-second period in between the waves. So the longer that period is, the stronger the rip current is going to be able to be. So keep that in mind. Again, with it being fall break for many people, many schools out there, not the best time to be headed to the beach. But if you are going to head out there, use caution. Coastal flooding, minor coastal flooding, so especially on our Gulf-facing beaches, is going to be something to keep an eye on. Camping on the beach, spending time at night on the beach, not going to be ideal. High tide is going to be overnight. So we're talking 10:21 p.m., 11:27 p.m., and then 12:16 a.m. the next 3 days. So tonight, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night into Thursday morning. We are anticipating our tide to be 2 feet over 2 feet above normal. So anywhere between 2.2 feet above normal to 2.3 feet above normal. We tend to see the minor coastal flooding when the tide is above 1.6 feet above normal. So this is likely going to lead to water easily making up to the dunes at high tide and impacting access to the beach well before high tide as the tide continues to rise, and then well after high tide as it is pushed back out to sea. Additionally, with any stronger swells that come up, any of those head high swells, those row kind of higher waves that are going to be possible, that pushes water further up the coast, more than you anticipate, more than any other wave does throughout the day. So keep that in mind. That could be a possibility if you've got stuff, toys, anything on the beach at times of low tide, which is at the perfect time. Lunchtime is low tide, 11:47, 12:40, 1:34. But with a rogue wave being stronger than the others, it could have some push that brings strong surge of water up the coast and can be hazardous for children or toys or so forth. So very important to keep that in mind this week, especially for anyone that has time off. Here's a look at the latest forecast. This is Futurecast, so this is going to be model data. But what you see there is Helene looking nice and healthy and strong. It does start to slow down a little bit and maybe weaken right about here as it's interacting with that frontal boundary. We lose the model data or the high resolution model data as we head into Wednesday evening, and then there you have it. Helene really interacts with the wind shear and breaks apart as it makes its way into the Atlantic. Category 1 hurricane still expected on the east coast of Florida as well, which will cause some issues. Storm surge anywhere from Jacksonville all the way up into Georgia potentially. So that is something else to keep in mind as well for any interest over in Florida. For us locally, we've got high pressure dominating. We do have that weak cold front. Rainfall, someone was asking about rainfall, pretty much non-existent for everyone except Florida the next 7, 8, 9, even 10 days. What we see is high pressure really dominating the U.S. forecast, and that's going to keep much of the country rain-free. We do see a trough, so that cold front gives a little bit of rain to the northeast, but very little rain. This is going out until October 17th, so not much hope of rain in Texas especially. That's going to be thanks to high pressure. We do see a weak front into Wednesday, and what that is going to do is drop our humidity more so than anything else, so we'll have comfortable conditions. Wednesday's going to feel fabulous. So if you are going to have outdoor plans, any day this week is going to be great. Wednesday will be a tad cooler and a tad less humid than the rest of the week. So very nice conditions. We do kind of continue to see a fall in our temperature, but that comes with a boost again in our humidity into the weekend. But it's going to be sunny. It's going to be hot. Our overnight lows could fall into the 60s. So low 60s Thursday morning. So that would be quite the treat. Jacket weather is near. But yeah, that's all I have for this forecast update. Mathis doesn't look like you're going to get any rain. Is this near the storm? Hurricane Milton is in the Gulf of Mexico, but it's moving toward Florida, not Texas, Vicky. And that is pretty much all I have. So thank you so much for watching this update. This is very weather focused, and it will stay that way. And I hope everyone stays safe and enjoys the week ahead. For your weather impact update, I am meteorologist Carly Smith, signing off.